So this is a Zoids annual that I'm recording on my mobile as another new experiment. And this, I believe, dates from about 1986, and it's actually produced by Marvel. Because in the mid-80s, Marvel produced a supporting strip for the Zoids toy line in the UK, which included strips like Spider-Man. And so the actual comic this is taken from is Spider-Man and Zoids. But this is just a Zoids annual, and I'd actually thought for the longest time that it was a Zoids and Spider-Man annual, but it isn't. I used to have this, and I got rid of it, stupidly. And so it's taken me a number of years to think about it again and actually get it an example back. And I actually got this from a second-hand bookstore online because it was much cheaper than getting it from eBay, as it turned out. So you can see here it's 1986 Marvel Comics on behalf of Tomy UK Limited. I don't know if it was an sort of 85, 86 annual or if it was kind of 86, 87. But basically it was it's a toy, it's a standard sort of toy line tie-in, but it was written really well and they developed the backstory rather nicely. In the comics, the backstory was basically to do with a crew of, I think if they weren't convicts, I think they were transporting convicts, and they crashed on Zoidstar, which is the Zoids' homeworld. And so it follows their adventures as they try to survive the rather hostile environment that they find themselves in. And here you see Zoidzilla, who is, yes, probably going to be sued by Godzilla, crushing a Hellrunner. And Zoidzilla is the leader of the Blue Zoids, who you can't really call the good guys, particularly. They're just the Blue Zoids. And there are the Red Zoids, of which this is one. And there are also a third faction who are sort of renegade Zoids, led by a chap called Krog, who you will see later. So it begins with a sort of a nice text story, just to sort of introduce you to various types of Zoids and just what in general has gone on. This chap here is called the Namer, and he is possibly the last Zoidarian. And he sort of takes the kind of cataloguing the Zoids, and they basically ignore him. But he does then meet the humans and sort of assist them as well. So you can see here all the Zoids have a cockpit, and in the cockpit is an android, although in the olden days it used to be Zoidarians fighting one another using Zoids. But these androids have just kind of carried on their normal mission of dueling and carrying out combat against each other, and it's just kept going basically. So it's kind of an eternal war sort of situation going on. This guy with the big cannon is called Gore, the Lord Protector. That's Redhorn the Terrible, who leads the Red Zoids. And that's a Hellrunner again. So the actual toys themselves, and this is Krark here. The toys themselves were a variety of wind-up and battery-powered. I had a few examples of both. I don't have any currently, but I would like to get my hands on some of them again. I know where I can do that. And they were construction, so they were kind of like plastic kits basically. So you built them up. Pretty easy to put together though. Didn't require painting or anything like that. Just, stickers, yes, but not painting. And then you just got on with it basically. And they all had various sort of movement features and so on built into them. So here we are. So this is the Eternal Struggle. Jeff Anderson did a lot of work on this, and I can't remember if he also did some Transformers strips, but there is a lot of crossover here because this is a Marvel UK production. So the writing in it is quite sophisticated for sort of an annual. Annuals are sometimes a little bit haphazard, but this is quite impressive as they go. And this is a story basically about a blue android who's had enough of the war, but keeps on getting resurrected, so much to his annoyance, despite his best efforts to get himself killed off because he's had enough. This Stegosaurus-y Zoid is called the Great Gorgon. That one I had actually. He was quite an impressive beast. You sort of put his batteries in his belly, basically, to get him going. So there you can see he's getting thacoomed right royally, as is often the way with these things. Got a little word search, which is uncompleted. Yes, it's an uncompleted word search. Bit of a shame that they cut the price off it, because I think that's the better state to leave annuals in, apparently. But anyway, so this is the tale of the last of the Zoidarians. What happens in this story is that he drinks this sort of contaminated water, and then he has this sort of weird kind of almost prescient flashback to what happened to cause the big disaster that wiped out the Zoidarians, and Zoidzilla was part and parcel of it, because they were trying to charge him up and it went wrong, and as a result, all the Zoids got kind of constantly energized, but it killed off all the organic life. So this is a sort of a breakdown of all the various Zoids you can get. So there's Redhorn the Terrible there, and in fairness, that is the toy, and it was a really good toy. In fact, I mean, I've even seen a box one of him recently on my travels. So it's still potentially possible to get him. And Zoids have run and run and run. This is the early Zoid line as it was in the UK, but they survived a long time in the US, kept going in Japan as well. So there's loads and loads of different variants down the years of Zoids. Also cartoon series as well, which I only just discovered, I think, in the 2000s actually. So blues listed there, again Zoidzilla as we saw before, and then we get into the borderline blues, which are kind of sort of can be both blue and red in a sense. Then the Red Army mutants, and then Krok's Wrecking Crew, as they call it. So Zunder, Zayton, Krok, Prince of Darkness, but he also gets a few others over to his side as well. So it's kind of a mixed bag from his point of view. Another Bluezoid word search. Now, Bad Moon Rising. This is the strip that really caused me to get this annual back, because it's art by Geoff Senior, who I know very well from Marvel strips like Transformers from the 80s and Dragon's Claws, Death's Head he also did. But here he does Zoids. And I think his style, he quite likes to do sort of straight lines on guns and geometry, very particular way of doing explosions as well, that I've always just, for some reason, I just enjoy. It's just a style I really, really have always enjoyed. So getting hold of some of his work again was nice. This sort of little sort of straight line shot there and the explosion style, very much him. So it's just really, really nice to see this again. It's a really good little story as well, because this story had repercussions for the weekly comic strip that was going on in Spider-Man and Zoids as well. So it's not just a sort of an annual one shot. It actually does tie into the overall storyline. This little Hellrunner here has got his cockpit open. And that was a nice touch as well, because that is a sign that they're there to sort of parley rather than fight. So basically, there's a sort of truce going on if the Blues choose to follow it when the Reds have their cockpits open, and vice versa as well, I imagine. So that's quite an interesting approach, and Redhorn is actually doing it to Zoidzilla and Krok here as well. And they're sort of arranging a three-way duel to try and establish how things are going to get resolved. This guy is, I think he's called Mammoth, isn't he? And as in he's like a woolly mammoth. So he was a blue originally. He actually turned red. So he was an interesting example of a blue who actually chose to go onto the red side. And we've got more of a interesting story here. What this story suggests is that when a Zoid gets hit, the android actually feels the pain. So it's almost like a symbiotic kind of link that they have with their machine, which I thought was quite a nice bit of detail actually for that sort of time. And I can't remember if that was made obvious from the comic strip at the time or not. Then you got a nice sort of role-playing game as well. I mean, as annuals go, it's really quite an impressive effort. So they definitely put a lot of thought into this, and it wasn't just a kind of a throwaway thing. And actually, annuals are often a really, really good source of information for vehicles and stuff from various series. And if you like this, I can do some more, because I've got quite a few examples of this sort of era of annuals on my shelves. So this is a storyline which is quite interesting, because this is the name of recalling a time when they were still doing heroic combat in person as Zoidarians rather than using the androids. So it's quite a nice sort of Deepening Goliath situation, because one guy's got this giant Zerk and the other guy's got a Spider-Zoid, which, whilst quick, are not very heavily armed. So basically he should have no chance, but ends up kabooming the Zerk. Again, Geoff Senior art to support this text story, which is nice as well. I mean, it's just lovely. I just love it. I think it's a Hellrunner versus a Stegozoid, I think. But it basically gets down to the androids in the end. So the blue androids are gold, and the mutant androids are silver. They mutated, I believe, because they came from one of Zoidstar's moons where the environment was very hostile, so they had to rejig themselves. So they were kind of heated internally, but that resulted in their programming getting warped. So basically, they ended up going against the blues constantly. See, it's pretty graphic. See, he's got his arm hanging off in the canopy there, and he's just busy impaling the silver android. So it's it's quite sort of hardcore stuff for what is ostensibly a kids annual, but that's British comics for you. They've always been pretty serious when they come down to it. So yeah, really nice to have one of those again. And as I say, let me know in the comments if you'd like to see some more examples of this sort of thing, and I can put some of those together for you. Cheers for now.